The program will begin in 5 minutes. Please take your seats and silence all electronic devices. The program is about to begin. Please take your seats.
Good morning. Good morning. I'll try again. Thank you. I am Diana Burley, Vice Provost for Research and Innovation here at American University. And on behalf of the event and the university, I'd like to welcome you here this morning to our second annual Tech Policy Changemaker Awards ceremony. Clap. We have an exciting program for you this morning. We have a wonderful awardee that we are going to highlight and exalt throughout the morning, and I'm going to do all of that a little bit later. But first, to give you some remarks of welcome on behalf of the university, I would like to invite our provost, Peter Starr. Thank you.
You know, it occurred to me, what we need here is one of those things that says applause. You know? I've been here for 13 years, and I've never thought about that, but we do need that. Thanks, Diana. You know, I so appreciate your leadership in today's event and every day. Here at AU, we've made growing impactful scholarship one of our top priorities. Diana's leadership as Vice Provost has been instrumental in that mission. Over the past 5 years, we've more than doubled our externally funded research, and this year we're on track to break new records. We're doing so well, I will not tell you how well we're doing because it's so good, thanks to Diana's leadership and the leadership of her team, that we're kind of getting a little nervous about it, right? And she's not nervous, most nervous of all. But Diana, I know all my colleagues who are here are thankful for all you do for this university. I am not Sylvia Burwell. She wanted to be here. She's under the weather, but I'm delighted to be here and to welcome you. I'd also like to recognize the deans in the room, Dean Vicki Wilkins of the School of Public Affairs, our university librarian, G. Davis, who are co-sponsors of this. Are there anyone else from the deans in the room? No, not yet. We got some others who are coming. We are really, really proud of today's event. And especially want to thank Vicki and G for co-sponsoring the event. The existence of the fact that the University Library is taking a big role in this, together with the School of Public Affairs, Diana's home unit, really makes my heart sing. So thank you. To all of you, thanks for joining us for the 2022 Outstanding Technology Policy Changemaker Award ceremony and to celebrate our winner today. Today we celebrate the change-making spirit that defines American University. Change-making spirit can be seen across campus in many ways, in the ways in which we approach our mission. Our mission is reflected in our strategic plan, Change Makers for a Changing World. You'll go around campus, you'll hear Challenge Accepted, our branding campaign, Change Can't Wait, our comprehensive campaign, Change Makers for a Changing World. You get the theme, right? And we get there with three pillars: learning, teaching, those are typical in higher education more generally, and particularly in America, but also community. And community, that third pillar really is the thing that distinguishes us. And we believe that it is, in a sense, it's community that gets us to and jumpstarts teaching and learning. Teaching and learning, of course, but also teaching and research. When we create a sense of belonging and work together as one, our community grows ever stronger. At the same time, we must all commit to the responsibility that comes from being part of a community. And that means thinking about things from different perspectives, embracing new experiences and challenges, and fostering change makers. That begins right here on campus with our commitment to inclusive excellence. We believe we are committed to the principle that you cannot be excellent without being inclusive. Inclusivity builds excellence. Within our focus on scholarship, this is the area that Diana oversees, we've carved out 5 areas of strategic focus, cross-disciplinary fields that involve some of the most significant issues that face the world today. And this year, we chose 2 inaugural signature research initiatives to tackle these challenges in important, game-changing ways that tie into our work in inclusive excellence. One of these is the Inclusive Technology Policy Initiative. led by a team of world-class scholars from the School of Public Affairs, the School of International Service, the Kogod School of Business, College of Arts and Sciences. This initiative works to ensure that diverse voices and perspectives are involved and included in the technology, digital and cyber policies by abolishing or dismantling barriers to inclusivity and magnifying diverse voices in the field. This scholarship has far-reaching impacts. There's no question but that technology plays a foundational role in modern society. Read the news. Or that innovation in this space will change the course of our future. How the technology space is managed and how it is governed will in turn shape that innovation. We need a technology policy that is inclusive, because if it's exclusive, we will miss out on innovations that could protect our environment, remap our healthcare system, promote human rights, advance national security, and so much more. How do we create an inclusive technology policy? By lifting up the voices of people who are pioneers and visionaries, people who work towards a more equitable technology infrastructure, people like our honoree, Pamela Wright. That's what the AU Technology Policy Changemaker Award is all about. You'll hear from this year's awardee later in the program, but I would just like to say that Pamela is an incredible role model for technology changemakers. Her work at the National Archives, which was recognized recently by the White House with the Distinguished Executive Presidential Rank Award, has been transformative. She's helped take the federal government's records online and make them accessible. In 2005, there were 150,000 digital copies of our government's records. Today, that total is close to 500 million. With 12.5 billion to go, it's safe to say that Pamela and her team had her work cut out for them. That's incredible impact, and it's just one example of Pamela's work. But before we hear from Pamela, we're going to hear, this is a treat, from our inaugural AU Outstanding Technology Policy Changemaker awardee, Doreen Bogdan-Martin. Doreen, who as many of you know, is an eagle, which means that she, when I say once an eagle, she'll say, always an eagle. See, we share the wonderful rituals of American University with all of you. And she recently broke, and here's an applause line. There's a thing down here, just a fictive thing down here saying applause, so get ready. She recently broke an important glass ceiling with her election as the Secretary General of International Telecommunication Union. With more than 30 years of high-level experience in international and intergovernmental relations, Doreen is more than equipped to face the cybersecurity challenges in the future. You hear that challenge accepted thing? But I think what sets Doreen apart is her work to bridge the digital and gender divides, which exemplifies the changemaker ethos of our American university community. I'm proud to welcome her today, Doreen Bogdan-Martin.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you so much, Diana. Thank you so much, Peter. It's wonderful to be back here at American University. It always brings back so many memories of my time here, of course, as a student, and it's wonderful to continue to be able to make those memories now as a 30-plus year alumni. Makes me feel very old. And of course, it was a tremendous honor to be awarded last year as your inaugural tech policy change maker, and looking forward to hearing more from Pamela about your extraordinary achievements. As Peter mentioned, I join you today just a couple weeks after I was elected as the next ITU Secretary General. The ITU, I think as many of you know, is a UN institution. It's the UN agency that's focused on digital connectivity, on connecting the unconnected. And when I take up my function on the 1st of January, I will be the first woman in the organization's 157-year history. It took us a while. And of course, it's been a long road to get to where I am today. It's taken, of course, a lot of hard work, a lot of dedication, determination, patience, in my course of more than 3 decades working in this sector, where I have worked tirelessly, I would say, to connect the unconnected. In my campaign platform, I had basically 3 pillars. It was promoting a digital future that would advance a safe, a trusted, affordable, meaningful internet for all. A digital future that could be achieved through strong partnerships and good cooperation. A digital future that could be achieved by advancing an accountable, a trusted, a skilled, and impact-driven, forward-looking, and innovative institution known as the ITU. I look forward to delivering on those commitments when I take up my new function. And I think I can honestly say, sort of hand on heart, that the start that I got here at American University was absolutely foundational to my success. I will be forever grateful to the many professors, some of which are still around, that inspired me and that challenged me, including Nanette. I understand Nanette couldn't be with us, but she was wonderful. And they inspired me, I would say, not just in the field of communications and technology, but in gaining a better understanding of social and cultural differences and the impact that technology can have. I was thinking about preparing for today, and I have a habit of saving things. I'm sort of a secret hoarder. And I actually had saved a tape that I made when I was a student here at American University. And I was in a class with Dr. Molana on cross-cultural communications. And we were given an assignment to make a video about the differences between the way that women communicate and men communicate. So off we went on a Thursday night down to Georgetown to the Safeway. And Thursday nights back in the day, it was considered the social Safeway. They had music, and it was where men and women went to meet each other. So it was absolutely an appropriate place to go and make this video. And I had to laugh watching the video, and of course I still have a VHS that works at home, and so I was able to watch it, but I laughed and laughed, and my husband watched it with me, and he also laughed. And of course, many of the discoveries that we made in that video way back when, I think are still quite valid in terms of the way that we're different, and sometimes it's about biases and other factors, but it took me way back, and I so valued that time with Dr. Molana. And of course, my time here at SIS, I would say I embraced the values and the principles that this community I think continues to hold. There was an unspoken acknowledgement that we were all here with a goal that went far beyond ourselves. We are all here with a desire to create an impact for the world around us. We're here with a commitment to international service. And for me, at AU, I started exploring how technology would actually create that kind of social impact. It's here in classes like with Professor Novotny, who I think is still around teaching, And in his course on international communications policy, I started to understand the importance of how satellite networks, satellite communications, combined with effective international policies, could actually connect the masses and transform the lives of countries, of communities, of individuals, and of course, of economies. Over my career, I think that realization back then has been reaffirmed time and time again, reinforced as our technology sector continues to grow at leaps and bounds and transform our world. From the teacher and the student in a small village in Rwanda that's now been connected to the internet and now has access to information and knowledge of the world, to the elderly person in Indonesia that has just been through a digital skills training program and has access to social family connections, government services, healthcare services, to the woman in the textile industry in Haiti that we trained in digital skills. She built a website and she can now sell her designs online. To the farmers in the remote communities all around the world that use digital platforms and services to improve their crop yields, to combat pests, to safeguard the health of livestock, to improve water use and environmental management. Digital is helping us break through in many ways that we never, ever expected, to break through some of our biggest challenges that this world is facing. But, and there's a but, are we doing enough? I think the big problem or the big challenge that we face right now is that not enough people have access to those life-changing technologies. 5 billion people are using the internet. That's an extraordinary success. That's happened over my professional lifetime, over the past 30 years. But that means that a third of humanity has never, ever, ever accessed the internet. And of course, many people that we actually count as being connected are not really connected in a meaningful way. Their connection is perhaps too slow, is intermittent, too expensive, or maybe it just doesn't have any relevant content to be useful. I think our big challenge is to ensure that people can access high quality, affordable, trusted connectivity and technologies that actually meet their needs, and of course work for them. I think we have to consider, like, what's the point of having a mobile device if it doesn't function in the language that you understand, if it's too expensive, if the content isn't relevant. As we move forward in this rapidly changing digital world, it's time for us to make sure that we're taking everybody on board with us, that we're being inclusive, as Peter stressed, and that we're not leaving anyone behind as we work to achieve the UN Agenda 2030 and those 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And that means making sure that people can access connectivity and digital technologies safely, that they can readily adopt it, and they can use it to create value in their lives and in the lives of those in their communities and societies. It means that we need to bring humanity back to the center, and we need to make sure that technology serves people and not the other way around. The UN Secretary General has put technology and universal connectivity and digital cooperation really at the top of his agenda. He talks about seeing the great promise, the promise in terms of helping to boost sustainable development, but he also talks about the peril: internet fragmentation, abuse, harassment, disinformation, even cyber warfare that he has placed within his new agenda for peace. From his references to the digital divide as a Grand Canyon to his references that we're facing a forest of red flags around digital technologies, to sounding alarm bells. I would say most recently on Monday at the G20 when he spoke and called urgently for leadership in digital transformation. I think by working collaboratively and working with all stakeholders, like those of you in this room, we can, and I think we must, ensure that digital is safe, that digital is inclusive, and that digital can be transformational. I think for me, that message is very much about what the Tech Policy Changemaker Award actually stands for. I think that's why it matters so much to me. On a hot June afternoon back in 1963, President John F. Kennedy gave a memorable commencement address here at American University. And at the time, there was great uncertainty in the world. He talked about peace and a different future. He spoke about breathing the same air. We all breathe the same air. He spoke about the fact that we all cherish our children's future. And he reminded us that our most basic link is that we all inhabit this small planet. Almost 60 years later, his message, I think, is so relevant in a world that yet again is facing significant challenges, from climate to conflict to a food crisis, an economic, how can I phrase it, challenges, turmoil, and many other challenges that the world is now facing. As the next ITU Secretary General, I will do everything I can, everything possible to ensure that we, together with the hundreds and hundreds of partners that we have, that we do our part, that we at the ITU do our part, and that we work to support this inclusive, sustainable, global digital transformation that benefits the planet and benefits all of humanity. Today, we are recognizing another inspiring changemaker, Pamela Wright, and I'm looking forward to hearing more from Pamela on her journey, her amazing journey in innovation and digitization of the National Archives, and your incredible accomplishments as well in the area of accessibility. I know that we have many other budding changemakers on this campus, and I was so grateful to have many of them join us in Rwanda, some online, some in person, and I hope that the community here will continue to engage with us in the ITU. I think it's in spaces like this at AU where digital policymaking discussions and work on social impact design, it really brings us together. It brings us together so that those vitally important conversations on inclusive, meaningful digital transformation can advance, can excel. It's the kind of inclusivity, again, Peter, I mean, that inclusive word, as you were speaking, I was totally agreeing with all of those messages. It's that inclusivity that delivers real social impact. It's that inclusivity that can improve people's lives and, of course, make our work worthwhile. The kind that makes our goals of service and of meaningful change both honorable and I think also tangible. Once again, it's a tremendous pleasure to be here today, to see you all. Thank you for joining physically. Thank you to everyone that's joining remotely. I'm excited to take at least my small part forward as a change maker, and I look forward to continuing to engage with you in your important mission here at American University. So thank you so much, and look forward to a good, strong, continued cooperation. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Why don't we give one more round of applause to Doreen? You know, the question that she asked that is so powerful is, are we doing enough? That is the question that drives us, that drives our actions every single solitary day here at American University. And as Peter mentioned, this year we launched 2 signature research initiatives, and one of those initiatives is the Inclusive Tech Policy Initiative. And I want to tell you a little bit about that and to help you understand how this initiative is helping us address the question of, are we doing enough? Because as we think about questions around access, and we think about questions around the use of technology, one of the areas that often gets left behind is the policy that drives that use, and the policies that drive whether or not different groups of people have access and what access actually means. So here at American University, where we are so very good, and you will hear in a few minutes from the Dean of our School of Public Affairs, where we are so very focused on developing policy and policymakers, we recognize that while there are lots of people who are looking at the question of technology and questions around access and making the technology work for people, there aren't as many who are looking at this question around the rules of the road. What is guiding the way that we roll these technologies out? What is guiding the way that we develop these technologies and how they are used to enable society to move forward? And so as we began to talk about that question of, are we doing enough? How can we make the sustained and strong impact on society that we want in this tech space? We realized that we needed to really raise the visibility of technology policy and to do it in a way that showcased how important it is for all of the different voices to be involved in the development and implementation of those technology policies. And so when we think about inclusive tech policy, we're thinking about things like who makes determinations about where this technology goes and who actually has access to it and what access means. As we went through the last 2 years of the pandemic, I think that really highlights this question of tech policy and how we make decisions. Because as we, as a nation, as a world, began to work through the pandemic and move activities and services online, and said, you know what, let's just move school online. Let's just do that, right? Let's move services online. We needed to think a little bit more significantly about what does that actually mean and who actually has access to that service. It is an easy thing to say, let's move class online when we know that we have full broadband access because the policies have enabled us to have that. When we know that we have home environments that allow us to have the type of privacy that allows us to conduct our work online. But what if we don't? What if we don't? How does that impact our ability to continue to learn? And how does that impact our ability to grow and develop and engage in society? And who sets those rules? And how do we ensure that the individuals who set those rules are actually thinking about not all of those who have tremendous and full access, but are thinking about all of those who do not? And ensuring that the way that we roll out the technology means that we are enabling all members of society to be able to engage. And so our Inclusive Tech Policy Initiative is focused on those questions. So our faculty members like Hung Soo in our Kogod School of Business, who looks at questions around artificial intelligence and thinking about fairness, We often hear words about artificial intelligence as the future of computing. But what we don't think about is the fact that those systems make those artificially intelligent decisions based on data. And the data that is used to train those systems has to be determined by someone. And so we have to make sure that there are a host of inclusive voices who are making decisions, creating the rules of the road to determine how those data will be used to develop these systems to ensure that these types of systems work for all of us. We have faculty members like Gary Korn in our Washington College of Law, who leads our Technology, Law, and Society program that is looking at questions around how technology is used or misused in our legal system. What does it mean to have this technology introduced into trials where some individuals are able to access experts and some individuals are not? What does that mean for society? What does that mean for fairness? What does that mean for the inclusion and the way that technology and the legal system works for all of us? These are questions that we have to address and we have to tackle, and we are, in fact, doing that here at American University. We have faculty members who engage in questions around communication and the foundation of our internet, faculty members like Derek Cogburn and Fiona Alexander, who help to make that infrastructure and create the policies around the infrastructure of the internet in order to ensure that all members of society are able to access those features and those services. And one thing that I want to point out as I mention all of these different faculty members is that as we think about what we can do and we think about the impact that we can make, what I hope you hear and notice is that this impact is not focused on one school or one discipline, but rather it is focused on the complexities of the challenge. And it becomes an all-of-university effort where we have individuals from our policy school and our law school and our School of International Service and our computer science departments and our business schools who are all coming together. They're coming together to conduct research together. They're coming together to educate our students together. They're coming together to inform policymakers and practitioners from a holistic perspective and a holistic point of view, because that's the way the challenges are structured. And we recognize that in order to truly effectively meet those challenges, we all have to come together to address them. So when we think about our tech policy initiative and our tech policy change makers, I think that you can understand, after listening to Doreen, you can understand why we honored her as our initial award recipient. And in a few minutes, you'll hear a little bit more about our current recipient, our new 2022 recipient, Pamela Wright. But I want to tell you a story about Pamela Wright because it struck me so much when I first had my first conversation with her, and she'll look at me and kind of say, "What are you talking about, Blair?" Because it exemplifies why this is so important. Pamela said to me when she first started working in archival work, before she ever became a member of the staff of the National Archives, she was a user of the National Archives. And while understanding our own histories is important, and my father did that whole come down to the archives and sit there and look at, where was my grandfather and where, all of that, that's important. That's not what brought her to the archives. Pam said that she was working for a native tribe out west that was trying to understand and establish their land water rights to make sure that they were able to sustain themselves. And the way that she helped them was by going into the archives, looking at the historical record to find what water rights they had and when those water rights were given. And what has driven her to digitize the archives is a recognition that it is so vitally important for individuals who are unable to travel to Washington, D.C. or wherever the data resides to be able to access those historical records so that they can leverage those records to sustain themselves. One of the things that I often talk about, and because of one of our colleagues we'll be talking about this weekend, is thinking about digital rights as human rights. We often talk about climate change and we often talk about access to clean water. We talk about access to basic human needs. At this moment in society, the internet, access to technology has become a basic human need. Digital rights, access, privacy have become human rights. And the way that we propel society forward in a way that brings all of us together is by ensuring that the way that we develop and implement the policies that guide the use and distribution of this technology is done in a fair and equitable way. And that's what our initiative is all about. Now, the one faculty member that I haven't yet mentioned as a part of the Inclusive Tech Policy Initiative is actually the lead for our Inclusive Tech Policy Initiative. And that faculty member is Professor Sasha O'Connell. And I left Sasha for the end because I'm going to call her up here in just a minute, but that's not the only reason. Also because I want to talk a little bit about her background just as a way of helping you to understand that this initiative is not just sort of what people tend to think about when they think about academicians, and that is our focus on the ivory tower and that our work is not connected to reality. Professor O'Connell spent 14 years in the Federal Bureau of Investigation. And during that time, she worked on policy and strategy and ensuring that the way that the FBI moved forward and thought about their use of technology, their investigations, all of that was done in a way that was fair and equitable. And she brings that focus to her work here at the university. And when we teach together, and we do that from time to time, I am amazed to see how the students react and respond to the linking of practice, policy, and scholarship. And so as one of the key features of this initiative is our ability to leverage the different backgrounds and strengths of our faculty members to link together scholarship, practice, and policy. And so we are very fortunate to have experts across that space working collaboratively with us to advance this initiative forward. And so I am delighted to introduce Professor O'Connell to you, who will present the award to our distinguished recipient. Sasha.
There's some hardware, Pam. It's coming. Thank you so much. It is amazing to be here today. As an AU alum a couple times over of the School of Public Affairs, there are many things I love about my job. Many things. Thank you, Vicki. My boss is here. My dean, my bosses are all here. Seeing students out there being part of such an incredible initiative, sitting in the front row with such incredible leaders. It really is truly inspiring to be here. And thank you all for participating. And I know we have a lot of folks online. So wherever you are, thank you so much for joining us and for your partnership throughout the year with ITP. There are also some things I don't like about my job, and the list is short, but one of them came up today, and that is following Dr. Burley at the podium. Okay, it's a tough act to follow. I try and avoid the circumstance, but here I am, and Pamela, for you, I'll pull this off. So thank you again, everybody, for being here. As Diana sort of talked about, and you've heard a little bit about Pam's work, when we saw the nomination package for Pamela for this year's awardee, it was, to say, sort of a bullseye, right? As you can probably get a sense of already. We were so inspired and so moved. I've already cried once this morning talking to Pam. I told her I wouldn't cry again. It really was so incredible to learn about her work and her personal story and the impact she has had. Before I talk a little bit more, I want to give you a little bit more of the official bio, and if you'll bear with me to put on my glasses, to read you a few other details about her just really storied and incredibly impactful career. As NARA's inaugural Chief Innovation Officer, Ms. Wright is recognized as an industry-wide expert on emerging digital technologies designed to dramatically expand public access to the archived permanent records of the federal government. She is focused on leading projects that combine NARA's values to collaborate, innovate, and learn with the exploration and introduction of evolving technologies in the digital spaces for the nation's most valuable historic records. Ms. Wright is NARA's lead for open government and is guided by the principles of transparency, participation, and collaboration we've already heard so much about today. And she has spearheaded numerous agency-wide initiatives that have moved the agency forward and democratized access to those records. She and her Office of Innovation staff, and I know some of them are here, and we want to give you a big shout out and thank you for your amazing work. Pam's team steers agency-wide description and digitization efforts that have created more, as you have heard, than 210 million digital copies of records in the National Archives catalog. She has worked with her colleagues and that team to map out the path, as you heard, to 500 million by 2026. So we'll be watching, and it's going to be incredible work. Pamela developed the Citizen Archivist program that has produced more than 9 million tags, descriptions, and comments for the catalog, resulting in millions of records becoming more accessible and easier for the public to find. And as Diana said, we know this is a real sort of driving passion of Pamela's, and it's so moving to hear more about. She championed the launch of the Internal Collaboration Network, NARA's first digital platform that supports open communication across organizational, hierarchical, and geographical barriers for staff. Pamela launched the History Hub in her spare time. We're still going, people. The agency's first digital public reference platform. Collaborating with universities, the Library of Congress, the Smithsonian, she has hosted town halls and conferences on the use of artificial intelligence for archival processes. Pamela opened the Innovation Hub at the National Archives building to provide a collaborative center for meetings and digitization projects for the staff, Wikipedians, and other agencies and the public. She's also established the catalog newsletter. I mean, I'm tired hearing this. How about you guys? I know, it's incredible, which reaches 350,000 subscribers. Pamela was selected to chair the description subgroup of the Archivist Task Force on Racism. The task force recommended a robust series of actions to move NARA forward on a path toward diversity, equity, accessibility, and inclusion. And in 2021, she was appointed as the chair of the Reparation, Description, and Digitization Working Group for the newly formed equity team. Those are just a few things that Pamela's been up to during her time at NARA. And it turns out that we are not this week the only people to notice. As you have already heard tonight, just this week, President Biden also acknowledged Pamela's work, which was so exciting. And we like to think we had a little piece of it. Like he heard, he was like, she's being recognized at AU. We were thrilled to learn that President Biden has selected Pamela as a 2022 recipient of the Distinguished Executive Presidential Rank Award, which is such an appropriate and fantastic additional recognition of your work. And we really hope whatever memento you get from the White House, you tuck into your office behind whatever hardware we're about to deliver here, because we have our priorities here at AU. Before I read a few words from one of Pam's colleagues who couldn't be here, I just wanted to say personally how fun and what a privilege it has been to get to know Pamela just on a little Zoom call, and then this morning to get to hang out. As a former federal employee, as you heard, I have a profound and deeply felt appreciation for the tenacity, effort, and sustained passion it takes to make change. And it really is truly inspiring to learn more about your work. And I know, as I said to you this morning, seeing you hold your daughter center and all of that while managing all of those other things is really an inspiration for me. So thank you for that. As I mentioned before I close, I have the pleasure of sharing with you some words from David Ferriaro. So for those of you who don't know, and I didn't know him until I did a little Wikipedia looking up, he was the 10th archivist of the United States. He's also the former director of the New York Public Library, the Duke Library, and the MIT Library. He is joining us online. So sir, thank you for your words. I hope I do them justice. I know he was instrumental in bringing Pamela to the archives, and he wanted to share some thoughts with all of you, which I have the privilege of reading. He said, during my early days at NARA in 2009, I recognized Pam Wright's expertise, passion, and excitement for the world of social media. The National Archive is responsible for providing guidance to the executive branch for the records, implications of any technology they are using. Hence, NARA best be on top of new and emerging social media platforms. Thanks to Pam Wright, who I appointed our first Chief Innovation Officer, NARA is now on more than 16 platforms, which I, again, can imagine was a little bit of a challenge to make happen, providing the guidance agency records managers need to do their jobs. In addition, that guidance supports the work of local and state governments around the country. An outgrowth of her work has also been participation in the International Open Government Initiative founded during the Obama administration. The principles of openness, transparency, and collaboration are key to the success of any open government action, and Pam has carried the banner on this front for a number of turbulent years. Further, Pam's focus on making our digital content accessible enabled NARA to provide a high level of service during the COVID pandemic, when our physical facilities were closed. I know he has spent quite a bit of time corresponding with Diana about how proud he is of your work and that he wishes he could be here. So thank you, sir, for joining us from Italy, which I hear is where you are, and sharing your perspective on Pam's work. So without further ado, I would love to invite you up to the stage. Uh-oh, we gotta open a box. I know, we might need help. Diana, help. It's trickier than it looks. It's a two-person job.
What is it? What's it gonna be?
Perfect. So the only other person on the planet who has one of these is sitting down here in the front row as well. But we are so pleased to commemorate this day in your award. I told him we'd do the federal, for those of you who know, sort of shake and pose move. So we wanted to present this to you. And thank you so much for all of your incredible work.
Thank you.
Did you want to say anything, or we can invite you here before I bring up Vicki?
I just want to thank everybody, and thanks for the NARA staff that are online and in the audience, and all the good work that you guys do that makes this happen. Thank you.
Amazing. Perfect. Thank you so much. So as Pam gets settled, I'd love to invite my dean, Vicki Wilkins from the School of Public Affairs, up to also add her thoughts and remarks.
You would think, as the dean for Diana and Sasha, I would not go after them at all. Next time, I will pull that. But thank you, Sasha. I appreciate your introduction and award to Pamela. And Pamela, again, congratulations. We are huge fans and so thankful for your work. And Dorian, thank you for being an inspiration. 100+ years of history mean nothing when we're standing there. So thank you for that. As Sasha said, I'm Vicki Wilkins. I'm the Dean of the School of Public Affairs and a professor of public administration and policy here at American University. And frankly, I think I have the best job around. You have met my two brilliant faculty members today, Diana and Sasha. But beyond that, I'm leading a school filled with outstanding scholars and dedicated teachers, students who are committed to service, and in a community here at AU that values care for each other. U.S. News & World Report ranked us among the top 10 schools of public affairs in the country, and while we are gratified by that recognition, it reaffirms something we already know. Our faculty is committed to advancing research and educating students who will develop and implement inclusive policies across a range of areas to address our toughest problems as a country. Naturally, tech policy is at the crux of these inclusive policies. Technology and access to technology will continue to increase and drive a substantial portion of societal activity. Technology and technology policy will play a key role in developing policy solutions from healthcare to justice reform, and even how we evolve as a democratic society. That's what I love about working here at SPA and at AU. Our scholars get it. I'm proud that Sasha raised her hand to lead the Inclusive Tech Policy Signature Research Initiative here at AU. SPA is proud to also be a partner of this endeavor, and we're here because of her talents and her innovation. We're also looking forward to partnering with all of you here today to grow our impact and to develop policies that build a more inclusive tech policy environment, and with that, the future will be bright for all of us. The future is also bright because we have our honoree, Pam Wright. And I also have another bright spot to bring to you today. I get to introduce our university librarian, G. Davis. G, will you please come to the stage for your chat with Pamela while I introduce you? G joined AU in July of 2021, and she brought with her brilliant ideas and great energy. She arrived from Villanova University, where she served as Associate University Librarian for Collections and Stewardship in the Falvey Memorial Library, a role that oversaw resource management and description, distinctive collections, digital engagement, and access to services. G has a track record of building strong partnerships and working collaborative with colleagues to support ever-evolving methods of teaching, learning, and research. Experienced in strategic planning and organizational review, she also demonstrates a long-standing commitment to enhancing diversity, equity, and inclusion. Among her many accomplishments, G led the development of Villanova's Affordable Materials Project, an initiative that focuses on equitable access to course materials and on reducing students' textbook costs. Early in her career, G held leadership positions at the University of Texas Libraries and at the University of Missouri Columbia Libraries. We kind of share a little time in Columbia. But I'm glad to have her here with you today and so proud to call her my colleague as she is taking on leading the University Library here at American University. Thank you, G.
Thank you so much for the kind introduction, Vicki. I am so proud to be your colleague as well. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today in person and virtually. I cannot say enough how excited I am, and I am so proud of working side by side with my colleagues who are so incredibly inspirational. You heard Diana talking about how important digital technology in terms of inclusivity and affordability. So, and also Doreen really inspires us how important the policy, tech policy in an international level. And then now I have here, sitting next to Pam, so I really want you to sit back and enjoy our conversation and in getting to know Pam, as I was fascinated by her accomplishment. So, Pam, I want to congratulate you again for this award. Your work has been inspiring so many people, including me.
Thank you so
And
much.
so I am so excited to talk about your vision, your commitment, and your achievement at NARA. So let me start. Oh, before I start with my question, I just want the audience to know that we will have some time for Q&As at the end of this segment. So you became the first Chief Innovation Officer at NARA, and then you joined this position in 2012. What does that mean to you and NARA to be the first innovation officer?
That's a great question. Thanks for it. Can I first say thank you to Diana, everybody at American University for this tremendous honor. I'm just blown away. And the speakers, everybody who has spoken speaks directly to what we do and to the heart of our work. And it's exciting to be among what feels like family, it's great. So yeah, it was wonderful to become the first Chief Innovation Officer. And the position was created, David Ferriero spoke about open government and that concepts of transparency, participation, collaboration. All of those are intended to open the government and make it build trusting relationships with the public. It is the backbone of democracy to be able to understand what happens in our government, to be able to understand the history of the government, and to be able to relate to it. So all of those kind of, all of those ideas are what really drive everything I do, and the position of innovation. So that's kind of the framework of it, but I have to say it is like, I don't surf, but if I did surf, it's just like wave after wave of exciting stuff happening I just hit the lifetime just right? Technologies just started getting very exciting at the same time that I started this job. That plus all of the changes and evolution in archival theory and practice, together, those two make for really exciting times so that we can provide access in ways we never even considered just a decade before. And I see that the waves continuing to come. So it's really an exciting job, and I'm very grateful to have it.
And I think it's really important for you as a woman who's in leading that digital transformation in NARA. And NARA has such an important role, and then preserving our nation's documents and important records, right? And so I know you joined NARA back in 2001, and
Yeah.
it's almost over two decades, and you have many, many accomplishments, right? So among those accomplishments, can you share your major accomplishment that you are most proud of as the Chief Innovation Officer?
Yes, I would be glad to. So first of all, I think I know far and away, my biggest accomplishment has been my ability to bring together a team that is incredible. And I have an Office of Innovation. There's about 40 staff on it, and 3 of them are here today, 3 of my directors. And it's Jill Riley, who is our Director of Digital Engagement, who has this superpower of connecting people. So she knows people across the federal government. She worked a long time ago at NARA for us, so she knows our agency. She then went out and worked at other federal agencies and came back and brought all those new ideas back. So it's amazing. She's an amazing person. Rodney Payne is our Director of Project Management. He's got 30 years of experience. He's not only really smart, he's wise, and he's like a mentor to me, really terrific staff. And then Michael Knight is our web director, has the gift of being able to explain technology to people who don't get technology. So he has helped bring transformation, I believe, in our agency where people might be resistant to updates that we're making, he explains it in such a way that they come along. And so the three of them are my directors, and I'm just very lucky to have them. So I'm very proud of that. Beyond that, I'm super proud of the millions that we have put into the catalog over the time that I've worked at NARA, and the millions that the public has contributed. And to break through to allow the public to work with us was a major accomplishment, and now everybody does it, right? But when we first did it, it was shocking, and such a happy surprise that the public loves to transcribe the records, and then they become advocates for your agency. So it's just been I think that started so many other projects that we've done that have been really exciting.
Also, it sounds like one of the major accomplishment you feel strongly is building the talent and working with the leaders and developing the talents, but also connecting the publics and then others to engage in our national records. And I think that's just fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah, because archives really focusing in a traditional archives that we are thinking about is very paper-based, right? And so I'm sure many people still think that digital archives, the idea is a little bit somewhat new to people.
Yeah.
And I think your work is all about that. So this is related to that aspect.
Okay.
You have such a fascinating story, and then Diana shared how you are actually getting into the archival profession.
Mm-hmm.
So your story is all about evolution of working paper records as a researcher to leading the major digital projects at NARA, right? And you've spoken about the importance of making digital records accessible to the public to allow more people to see and learn about how U.S. government work, right? So this is something that related to Doreen was talking about, how important that people be able to access the information they really seek.
Right.
And I think Sasha also mentioned about democratizing information. So my question, this is a so exciting question to ask you. My question is, what do you think digitization is? Why do you think digitization is one of the key components of democratizing information?
Right. Yeah. It breaks all the barriers. Many of the barriers, not all of them. So we're really good. We have decades and decades of experience of giving in-person access to our records. So we've got that down. So that's not a problem. So if people want to come in and see the records at our any of our facilities around the country, we're really good at that. And I think that is not anything that needs a particular attention. What we want to do moving forward, and what we're doing right now, in fact, this weekend, Jill is launching our next generation catalog, and it's exciting. So it will scale up so we can look at billions. But what we need to do is look at how can people access our records. And in the U.S., lots of people have cell phones and are comfortable using them. We need to be where the people are, and that's where they are. I think that federal facilities can be very intimidating to people, and so we need to keep that in mind as we say, they can come into the office. I still haven't gone into the FBI building downtown. It scares me. It's a big, intimidating building, and I think, will I get photographed going in? I mean, But there are all kinds of people from various communities that are not comfortable coming in to a research room to look at records that could be traumatizing to them. History is ugly at times and very difficult, and it can be very personal. And to ask someone to come into a public facility, like a federal government facility, and just expose their lives is a lot. So I think being able to give them access online in a way that's easy to search, easy to find, and they can be wherever they are in their lives, it comes to them. That's the goal.
That is absolutely important things to keep in mind, and I think the central idea of what inclusive technology Changemaker Award is all about. And at this point, as a university librarian, I have to say that we also in university libraries, archives, I have my head archivist here somewhere, Leslie Nelly over there. What we are really trying to do is the similar concept. Information profession, we have some of our leaders in this event as well from the Maryland State Archives and then Catholic University. It's so important, all of us having a little bit of share to make advancement, right? And then the Doreen's and Diana asked the question, are we doing enough, right? And so I just want to kind of share the university library at AU is trying to do how to make the information more accessible to, especially around our special collections. So I really appreciate your leadership in the nation. And I feel like, leaders like you in NARA makes me feel better and sleep better at night. So that is absolutely fabulous. We talked, especially it really struck me to, like when Diana talked about through the inclusive tech policy, bringing all different disciplines, right? And then, I'm thinking about particularly history in terms of the archives. So where do you see the intersection of history and archive, especially with the technology going?
Yeah, there's a couple of things on that that I think are really interesting. First of all, I think your archivist just talked about this earlier this morning. We need to make sure that we share the records in a way that is useful to historians. And historians are doing a lot more data mining and digital humanities and social scientists. And so we need to make sure that, what are the ways that we need to share our records, that it isn't, we don't assume it's just genealogy, genealogy is fantastic, but it isn't just that. And what are the other ways that people need to receive those records? And that is an ongoing, that just evolves all the time. And we're making great strides in that area too, I think. I also would say that what I love about the National Archives anyway, is that our records cover every topic you can think of. We have everything in there. And one of the cool things that's happening right now, for example, is we are working with NOAA, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, and they're doing this really great project. We have old ledgers, handwritten ledgers, they're big, heavy books, that from the 1800s, where people who were sailing around the world took weather data and wrote it, every day they wrote what the temperature was, what it looked like. So they're mining that data to predict and understand climate change and doing all that kind of work. That gives me goosebumps. That's what, there's stuff we have, we don't know how it will be used. And so we just have to keep thinking kind of outside what the familiar for us, and where could this go? How can we be useful? I think that's really important as we continue to try to make the best digital access we can. And this is why it's got to be inclusive. Because if it's just a few of us in the room and all we've ever studied was English and history, or, that you don't even know that NOAA could use your records and do climate change studies. So that's why it's great.
That's also, as you were talking, I was thinking of our students, right? Because, when I was in college, it was still predominantly print, right? So digital was very rare. And then I had a recently conversation with one of the students, and he really thinks that having books is weird, right? The physical
Does he?
book is like weird.
Oh my gosh.
Why do you carry that around? And, I have a 14-year-old child, and he thinks that he knows all,
Yeah.
right? Because
They do it.
all the information is, right under his fingertips.
Oh, yeah.
So I really worry about him, right? As an information professional, what are we going to do about this? But our students are so smart,
Yeah.
right? And so digital savvy, and
yeah.
they're so engaging.
Yeah.
So, students from all different backgrounds and disciplines, it is no doubt they will intersect with a bunch of primary sources and technology in their careers.
Yes.
And I'm curious, how do you see archives, especially digital archives, intersecting with the different fields, and then how do you anticipate their career can advance using the technology and archives or primary sources?
Well, my fear is, I think if you talk to the youngsters these days, they think it's all online already. Yes. They're like, what? It's not all online? But if you talk to archivists, they're like, oh, it's just a drop in the bucket. We know that's not all online. But there's a disconnect between what the public thinks and what I think many in the archival profession think or have thought in the past. And so, as mentioned, we have 13 billion pages of textual records alone, let alone everything else that we have. And, we've started it, and we've got to get to that first billion, and then we can run. I just feel like we better get going. I almost want to leave and go do it, because they all think it's already there.
Yes.
Right? And that's what they're going to use. And at some point, that's it puts a boundary around knowledge and understanding. Mm-hmm. And if everybody in the group, in that age group, just says, yeah, I think we looked at everything, we're missing history. So we've got to get history up there and online and accessible to them to use throughout the rest of their lives.
That's absolutely critical. And I know that we as library professionals and then archivists are having that conversation as one of our biggest challenge. Because if you remember Google's book project, right, digitization project, when that happened about, I can't remember, 15 years ago,
yeah.
The idea is we're going to make all digital and everything is going to be online, everything is fantastic. Well, as far as I know, still probably less than 10% of world knowledge is right in digital, and then the rest of them are still in physical format, right? And so we have a lot of work to do, and digitization really truly is really our focus, right, to make that happen. Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit more about, because I'm fascinated about this. Can you talk about a little bit more about your engaging people?
Yeah.
And then drawing them to participate this process.
Oh, sure.
And then make the records available, because you're so successful in that space.
So that's kind of our citizen archivist work that we've done. So I have to say, the idea for this citizen archivist work came from one of my youngest staff. And she came in and she said, she loves citizen science, and she was a birder. And so they had, NASA had people looking at different things, and she participated in that. And she said, why don't we do something like that? I'm like, what? How would that work? And she explained it to me how she thought it could work as far as transcribing the records. And so we found 1,000 records. I think I scared a lot of the senior staff by even bringing it up. But what we did was, the secret password is pilot. We can always kill it if it's bad. Right. So you always say, we're just piloting, just experimenting. And then pilots last decades sometimes, yeah. And so we also had a student who worked for us who loved history and IT, which is just the most beautiful combination. And she created a little thing that was stuck up on the web with 1,000 records in it. 1,000 records that had to be approved through so many processes to be put online. And we allowed the public to transcribe those records. And we said 1,000 records would take 6 months, and then we'd come back at 6 months and say whether or not the fears that people have of what will happen. And in 2 weeks, they were all transcribed. And in fact, we threw in a Russian record and a French record, and they were translated as well. And that turned executives at our agency, that turned people on to, hey, this is looking pretty good. And really thanks to great leadership at our agency that supported us and funded us and helped, kind of keep pushing us through. We were able to put that kind of technology into the catalog. And now, in the catalog, anybody can go on and find, if you see records that you're interested in, you can put translation, you can tag it, you can do things to make it easier for you to find again and for other people to find. So then that was so successful in the catalog that we built the website for the 1950 census this year. And I was a little nervous about it. We're not trying to compete with Ancestry or anything. We just want to give really good public access. And it was clear to my team that people want to search by name. We can give, 10 years ago when we launched the census online, there was a lot of technical difficulties, and we also didn't have it described in such a way that you could search by name. So we knew people needed to search by name. We knew we did not have the capacity to put all those names in there. We just don't within. So we teamed up with Amazon Web Services, and we used their newest OCR. It did a rough draft of names, and then we used that same technology of allowing the public to transcribe so they could refine it, and it's a huge hit. And it's really thanks to the team that works with me that happened. So.
So I have to say that is like killing multiple birds with one stone.
Well, it evolves, right? Your understanding evolves. The first time you do something, it's really scary and you're not sure, and then you've had a little practice, and then you can kind of morph it into the next thing. So I don't think, for example, with social media too, you don't just jump into social media. You have to start on a platform and learn, oh, you don't say that kind of thing on that platform, and oh, that looks really dorky, or, right? And then so we did it on that platform, but this one's different. You learn over time. So I think growing, time is really a wonderful thing in working with technology, because it repeats in some ways and really resonates, so that each time you get a little better with the project.
Well, Leslie, we got to do something like that for us, okay? So just make note.
I'm sorry, Leslie.
Because the impact is, close to 1 million tag, I remember.
Yeah, it's 9 million tags.
Oh, 9 million
and
tags.
2 million transcriptions. And we have this newsletter that goes out, which is really a neat thing that happened as well, where we communicate to our most rabid users, the people that really love to transcribe. It's about 350,000 right now. And we, in that newsletter, just say, hey, this is new in the catalog, go transcribe it. And we have these missions, and people are amazing. The American public is, they are amazing, and they want democracy to work, and they want to support these institutions, and it's really a great project.
Yeah, it feels like similar to how on university campuses, right? We have excellent labor on campus, like students, right? And how to use them, just like in the archives and record administration. I think we really encourage public to engage and then do their maybe civil duty,
right?
Something like that. Yeah.
Seniors too. What I love about this is. So the young people can't read handwriting, is what I hear, and that's how we're gonna keep the world going. But the senior, there are people that we've heard back from in senior homes and across the country that love to read the writing and can transcribe it, and it gives them a sense of purpose. I mean, we've gotten beautiful letters from people that really are dedicated to doing this work. And I love that. I think it's a nice reciprocal relationship.
And then I want to kind of note that to audience, the digital information, I think we forget because we are, using very naturally, but we are very privileged in the United States using the digital technology and access information. Yeah. But when I look at, who's actually accessing our archives, digital archives, it's amazing. It's international.
Oh, yes.
There's so many countries are actually looking at our data. And then I think one is because it's valuable, but two, they really need data, right? And then maybe they don't get that information from where they are. Right. And so I think what you're trying to do, opening the U.S. records to web, which is global, is such an important mission. So thank you so much for your work. I'm going to switching a little bit the talking to something that I've been wanting to ask in terms of inclusivity in tech, in terms of gender, right? So I know you are passionate about motivating women to be at the forefront of developing and deploying technology. And, we still have a lot of work to do in that space because it's still lacking in women presence. So what would you say to young women who may not think that tech is, their interest, or, they don't belong to tech, but interested in history and social justice?
Oh, well, you might not be interested in tech, but tech is interested and needs to be interested in you. And when you see what's happened with Google with AI, and when we talked about AI earlier, really this is really important to me, that the creation of these next generations of technology require diversity in the room, or you're going to find yourself on the front page of the New York Times where they show the bias of whatever product you made because it was just a certain gender or race in the room, and they were ignorant of all the ideas that they should have been thinking about. So none of us really knows what we don't know. You need a really diverse group to create the technology that we want to make going forward. And I'm hyper aware of that because, we, as a federal agency, you've got to be careful about your reputation, and you need to be thoughtful as you go forward. And the way to do that is to invite everyone you can think of in the room before you do the work. Open government is really about that, where this is an opportunity for our government to go to the people, and instead of saying, hey, we've got this plan, do you like it? Saying, we don't have a plan yet, could you help us create it? That's a huge difference, and that's what we're trying to do with a lot of the work that we're doing at the National Archives. So I'm super proud of the hundreds of millions of records that we're getting in. I think that's just baseline. We need to keep doing that. That is just fundamental to the work we do. But what's really been exciting in the last couple of years is to work on reparative description and digitization, and focusing on, it's a focus on the public, which we've always had, but it's an admission that there are people that have been overlooked, that have been mischaracterized, that have all kinds of issues that, because our profession in particular wasn't that diverse, we need to open up and figure it out. So the first thing is to go build relationships with these communities and bring them in and ask them questions, work with them on what is it that you want us to digitize? Like, what is it in our collection? Can we kind of go through the collection, tell me why do you want particular records? And then let's put those to the top. Are there projects on the records that we have digitized that you'd like to work on together for transcription, or the different things that we can do? And so I think that working with communities that have been traditionally just ignored is the critical step for success going forward.
Well, I think having women in tech space, as well as in many different spaces, that goes also underrepresented, racially underrepresented ethnic groups as well. It's so important because I think this is really connected with Diana's point about who's putting information or who's deciding how information is going to be organized and retrieved.
Yes.
And I think, as you know, in our library and information and archive profession, this has been one of the very big and difficult challenge because we are still very white in our profession.
Yeah.
And then, inevitably, right, our implicit bias or explicit bias can be reflected in how we are working. So it's so important to diversifying our profession, but also educating publics as well, I think.
Yes, and I just add one thing to that. I bet there are other people in this room who have had the same experience I've had, where you're the only one of whatever your kind is in the room. And that's that weird feeling of, I'm the only one in the room? Well, yeah, you grow, if you are in tech and a woman over a certain age, yeah. So that happened to me a lot. And somebody told me once, when you don't feel like you belong in a room, I'm not sure I belong in here, if you're in the room, you belong in it. And if you're the only one, they need you. Whether they know they need you, often they don't know that, but you need to be there. So it's, it's a hallmark of doing great work if you're in a room where nobody else is like you in that room, and you have a mission in that room to make a difference.
It's so important, and I think we have a lot more work to do. And I want to save some time for the audience, so I'm going to ask my last question, very important question. I've been saving this one because it's such an important question to me, but I think to our profession. But I know for sure archivists, archives community has been thinking about this a lot. So I really wanted to ask you this question so that you have opportunity to answer. Okay. The decisions you make at NARA have a wide-ranging and deep impact, right? Because the nature of the work you do. Which personal and professional values influence the decisions you make in your work? Yeah. In addition, what ethical struggles do people working in archives face on a regular basis?
Oh my goodness, yeah, that's great. Well, I think we're working through, I'll take that second part of the question first. The agency, through this reparative description working group that we're working on, is really reflecting on the words that we've used to describe the records, which have huge impact. And I think archivists have always prided themselves on how professional they are in creating those descriptions, and they have been. The change to me, or the evolution of it, has been the realization of who I am as the person who's describing these records. So I'm a white, middle-class, educated female, and I bring all of that lens to what I'm writing. And to be conscious of that and think about who are the people that are going to need to use these records, and what do they need to see in that description. That's what's become much more conscious, I think, in just the past couple of years. And we're working hard to kind of evolve that into what the next generation of description of those records, which a lot of people, they just think the records are important, which of course they are, but description is super important too. And somebody told me it was just a small part of the work. It's the small part, like the key is to your car, right? That's how small it is. And so I think that is the future that we have that path is where we're going, And then as far as what drives me and the vision that we have, the open government, transparency, participation, collaboration as just that's the guidepost for what we do. The archivist and the agency have had these terms that are on all of our monitors when it's collaborate, innovate, and learn. And if you can do that in any project, especially with innovation, you have to push enough to fail sometimes. It's not about the success of the project. It's about how much you learned, how much you collaborated, and how did you move things forward.
I think, with that note, I feel very grateful for American University creating some space for students, staff, and faculty to explore the new things, but also, give some space to fail or, lessons learned. And so I think it's really important for leaders like you to, at a helm, encouraging people to explore different ideas and like a citizen participation crowdsourced project. I think that will really change. And then you already made a great change in NARA and the digital technology and transformation in NARA. So I really thank you for all your work. And then I want to open opportunity to the audience if you have any question. There's hands. And do you have microphones somewhere?
I don't see one. I have a
Okay.
And then Abramson and Fiona and Gary and everybody to help this hang, to have this come to pass. And this conversation has been so exciting to me because I've been at AU for about 14 years. And before that, I spent my academic career in schools of information. And so the library schools formed a big part of those schools of information. So I was always told that I had the heart of a librarian. Archival project, we had a project at the University of Fort Hare, which was a small university in South Africa, very important. It housed the archives of the liberation movement in South Africa, but it was very isolated. And so one of our projects worked on making those archives available to the public and to the world the way you are. So I feel like I do have this heart of a librarian. But what I work on now a lot is on inclusive technology policy, particularly focused on persons with disabilities. And as you talked about opening up the archives to the country and to the rest of the world and making sure that more and more of that is available, I'm just curious to hear if you can say a little bit more about your strategies for ensuring that the team is focusing on the accessibility technology standards, from the web content accessibility guidelines and all of the accessibility standards that are out there. Are you ensuring that the team is making sure that all of that material from the beginning is as accessible as possible to people with disabilities?
Oh, that's just a wonderful question. And yes, we have an accessibility person on our staff, and I think it's vital for us. Are we doing enough? Not yet, but we continue to move forward on it, and we know it's important. And it's just fundamental to what we need to do. We also are, not everybody speaks English, which is like a shocker, right? And to recognize that and we're starting to look at, can there be Spanish translations on the website? Just the basics need to be done, and we're moving in that direction as well. So accessibility means a whole bunch of things across the spectrum, and we are definitely looking toward those. Yes. Yeah.
Hello.
Hi.
There's a microphone.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you to your team. The National Archives is always a model for the state archives and always an important collaborator. And I just want to say, all the, like the National Archives, the Maryland State Archives has millions of records accessible. We're adding hundreds of thousands every week, and making them accessible now, as you've all pointed out, is so important. But what keeps me up at night, and I know I'm not doing my job if 100 years from now those records can't be accessed. Is that a part of your shop as well, or do you have another team? I know you're fortunate to have many staff at the archives, the National Archives.
Never enough.
Is that always a part of your mission too? Because I think one of the greatest challenges for us is, yes, we're working with agencies every day. More and more records are entirely electronic. We have the capability now to make them accessible, but what about 100 years from now?
Oh, that's such a great question. And of course, preservation, it's preservation and access go hand in hand. And we absolutely have a team that's looking at preservation over the long haul on our stuff. For access, to think about access going forward, I feel like it's an evolution, and you have to keep it up. It's just a never-ending job to move it to whatever it needs to get to. Michael moves our websites in Drupal. Our CMS goes each iteration of Drupal, the next one's going to come up. So this idea that you're going to do it once and be done on anything, the quality of the digitization 20 years ago compared to now, for example. And so I think sometimes people use that as an excuse to not go digital, just have the piece of paper sitting and then you can just serve it and then that's it. But it's just, I feel like it's like making your bed every day. You got to do it. You have to move it forward that way. And on the access side, that just happens incrementally and kind of naturally. So I'm not worried about it. And I know we have great people working on it on the preservation side as well. And so it doesn't worry me too much. I think we're on top of it.
Hi, I'm Katie Savage. I run the Defense Digital Service at the Department of Defense. So we really appreciate your work because we engaged in a project last year to help the Defense Health Agency digitize their collection of human tissue samples. They are sitting on like a 50 million slide treasure trove that can tell us a lot about the field of pathology. So we are getting them on track for that. But one of the observations in getting them spun up on that project, you mentioned some of the creative ways that you're outsourcing the collection, working with AWS, I'm sure with Google, crowdsourcing it. But it's interesting, for time and cost purposes. I mean, a lot of the artifacts are rapidly decaying, so we do need to move them quickly. So, vendors and open sourcing can be a great solution. On the other hand, I worry, one of my biggest fears about working with DHA is that we didn't leave them behind a more digital workforce. We didn't necessarily stand them up with a CIO's office that could be thinking about the long-term skill sets that we need to, have the foresight to be doing everything you were talking about, the preservation aspects of it, the ethics of it, but also, as new scanners become available, as new cloud technology and compression software becomes available. So just curious how you sort of balance those two things.
Oh, that's great. So we have a digitization strategy that has, we call it kind of the 5 streams of digitization. So, there's never just one way to do it. And I think by looking at the various ways to do it, some have ongoing, issues that make it more easily, let me say that again. I think some of the ways that we do digitization really help staff to evolve and learn and create new ways to do digitization. So if staff are doing digitization, we have some projects that are really made for them. Some are made for a contractor to just knock it out and get it done. Some are with partners that have a ton of funding and can help us, and maybe we do some of the description, they do some, we can work together on that. So there are various ways, and I think by not putting all your eggs in one basket, but by doing it across the spectrum, you can lift the staff, they can move forward. We do have a digitization staff at NARA, and we also do digitization in the offices. So if you're an archivist, you can also do some scanning. It isn't one or the other. And I think by having that spread out, the different ways that we do it, all those streams come into this ocean of the catalog that we have. So I guess that would be my answer for it right now, but I do get what you're saying. And some days I just wish we could contract the whole thing out and be done because I want it up there, but there's so much to be learned. And it also depends on the quality and how the records are. Some of them are trifold records from the 1800s that are brittle and onion skin. There's all that kind of stuff. And then there's others that are reports that could be fed through a feeder. So I think taking a look at it and seeing what the kind of records there are and who's got the skills, and then consciously giving staff opportunities to work on it, I think is really useful too.
So thank you so much for engaging. I think we have we reached the time, right? Diana is nodding me. One last question for the Pam before I wrap up this segment, because there are many library archivist professionals out there who are really trying to do the right thing.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of challenges. Would you give a little bit of advice to them about digitization and how we can advance this mission?
Sure. I salute all the librarians and archivists out there. And what's really neat about this meeting is that you guys are excited about this stuff, because the work we do really goes kind of unsung. It's kind of under the radar. Same with federal government workers. We're a non-political agency. We're just doing our jobs. And it's very quiet until it becomes threatened, and then all of a sudden, we come in the news. But I think just keep at it, keep going forward. And also this idea that you have at American University of, working across various practices and understanding is critical to the work that you do, so that cross-pollination among the various things that you do as archivists and librarians, to be listening to people outside of archives and libraries, I think is essential.
Thank you so much, and thank you for engaging audience.
Thank you, Pam and G. This was who knew librarians were so excited? I started my career in the mid-90s looking at the movement of government services online. And one of the things that we often focused on was access, but not just access to what's online, but recognizing that technology policy also meant thinking about those people who could not access what was online. And often when we get so focused on the technology and we think about, oh, this is great, we also start to think about how much money it's going to save, right? And we start to go down this road, and we forget those who don't have that kind of access. And so it is just vitally important that as we continue to think about inclusivity and tech policy, that we think about all members of society and the different ways that being inclusive manifests itself. One of the things that Pam said and G talked about was being the only one in the room. I'm often the only one in the room. And while it used to bother me, now I think of Maya Angelou. And a quote of Maya Angelou was that we spend our early years trying to fit in. And as we grow and mature, we spend our later years trying to stand out. And so I would say to all of our, particularly students, but even those of us who are students of life, start now trying to stand out and using your differences as your superpower, so that when you are in the room, you are embracing it and you are leveraging it to move everyone forward. I get so excited when I hear Pam talk about the different activities and initiatives of the archives. I get so excited when I think about all the activities and initiatives of American University. I am just truly honored to be able to stand in this place, in this space. And I want to thank all of the individuals who have helped us, not just with this event today, but with the initiative in general. I want to call some people out specifically. If I don't call your name, it's because I started my career in the 90s. So, but first I want to thank our silver sponsor, ITI. We are truly grateful for your support of this event and your partnership throughout all of this. I want to thank again and recognize again all of our faculty members who are playing such a critically important role in the Inclusive Tech Policy Initiative. I want to thank our provost, Peter Starr, who listens to all my crazy ideas. And he doesn't shut me down immediately. I know he's thinking it, but he doesn't do it. And so thank you, Peter. I also want to thank our president, Sylvia Burwell, who has also been incredibly supportive of all of our crazy ideas, because that's where Peter takes them. And Sylvia says, yes, do it. So I definitely want to thank her and wish her a speedy recovery. And I also want to thank our staff members. I have to point out one in particular. Yasmin, where are you? Raise your hand. Yasmin, if it wasn't for her, we wouldn't be here. I wouldn't even know where I was supposed to be. But she truly has helped us to organize every single solitary thing that we have done. The events team at SPA, Lisa and Stephen, have been wonderful. Claire in the university libraries has been wonderful. I mean, all of the staff members have just been wonderful. And then there's one other person that I want to recognize. As we talked about the Inclusive Tech Policy Initiative and talked about how all of these different faculty members in different parts of the university are coming together, one piece that I didn't necessarily highlight was our students. And the fact that our students are an integrally, whatever that word is, very important, very, very important part of inclusive tech policy and the initiative. We have had amazing students, Ellis and Kaylee, who have helped us to really move this forward. And it's through their leadership. Talk about having different people in the room. Through their leadership and us talking about, how can we make sure that students are really engaged and involved? They had the idea of saying, you know what? Why don't we ask the students what inclusive tech policy means to them? And why don't we collect those responses, select one of those students, and have that individual come to the event in the morning? And so he didn't know that I was going to do this, but I want to point out Jalen Brown. Jalen's one of our amazing American University students who wrote about inclusive tech policy and what it means to him, and if I may paraphrase, said that what it really means, what it all comes down to, is that it means that he belongs in the room. And you do. And I hope that that message goes out to everyone. So as we prepare to depart, I want to ask all of you to ask the question, are we doing enough? Are you doing enough? And if you feel like you can do more, I ask you to join us in our initiative. Call me, email me, I'm always around, because we need you. We need your voice, we need your expertise, we need your perspective. If we are going to truly change society in the ways that we all want to, it is going to take all of us. So, I am going to close out the program. I want to again congratulate Pam. I want to again thank and congratulate Doreen. And I encourage all of you to mingle with each other, get to know each other, and travel well. And we'll see you next year. Thank you.